Welcome. This is Trent Cotney, CEO of Cotney Construction Law, and we are very pleased to have everybody attend today. We've got a great webinar for you. Today we have Jacqueline and Mark with Trussell, who is one of our great affinity partners. I'm going to talk a lot about some stuff today that I think you guys are going to find really interesting, both from a business and technology standpoint. I encourage you guys to, make sure you go to Trussell's website, take a look at what they do. They've been a great partner with us, and I'm really looking forward to kind of, seeing what they have to say today in this webinar. So, John Kinney, our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, is going to be talking today along with Jacqueline and Mark. And John, what I'd like to do now is turn it over to you and have you get started. So, John.
Sounds good. Jacqueline, you want to give a little introduction about Trussell to our viewers?
Sure. Well, thank you first off, Trent and John, for having us. I know Mark and I are really excited for the opportunity to be having this webinar today, sponsored and hosted with the two of you. Really excited about our partnership and the opportunities for us to be able to continue to work together. Just some background really quick about Trussell, and I'll get into it a little bit more as we go through. We are a construction technology firm, but we do also offer some training services and some construction management services that I'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation. We're based in Bakersfield, California. I work remotely out of Milwaukee. Mark's in wonderful California land today, and really excited to talk about some of the productivity challenges in the industry, amongst others, and talk about how there's opportunities to utilize different technologies to really improve some of the job site management and productivity results.
All right, sounds good. I know for our listeners out there, I'm familiar with Trussell system. I used it on my construction career side of my business, and definitely got a lot out of it, and that's why they were a perfect fit to become a affinity partner of Cotney Consulting. And Cotney Consulting, as you know, we're part of a offshoot of the Cotney Construction Law. We work on the consulting side of the business. So, as you all know, the listeners out there, we are both cover the law aspect and on the Cotney Law, and the consulting and your business needs and software needs onto the consulting side. So with that, I think let's go ahead and proceed.
Sure. So one of the first things that we'd like to talk today a little bit about is some of the different challenges that the construction industry faces. And a lot of this might already be familiar to some of you, some may be new. In addition to, the workforce shortages that the construction industry is already faced with, stagnant productivity, and now even delays. And John, you can probably talk about this a little bit more later on, but the delays now that are coming out of the COVID-19 crisis. There's a lot of other challenges that the industry is just facing on a regular basis. One of the primary challenges that the construction industry faces is really a lack of standardized business processes using best practices. So procedures such as lean pole planning and waste elimination, these have been generally accepted best practice processes and procedures, and they've been accepted as these processes and procedures because of the research that's been done and really the experience that has proven optimal results. However, it seems that due to a number of factors, there's a resistance in a number of cases to adapt some best practices. So this continues to remain a challenge today. Another challenge that the industry is facing is a lack of workforce development. So this is something critical. Generally, what happens is, and many of you may know this, high-performing craft workers tend to receive, what we call battlefield promotions to field leadership roles. But a lot of times, these individuals, lack the training and even the skills to effectively manage their crews. So unfortunately, a lot of the frontline leaders, perhaps, which are generally some of the most critical people in a construction organization, tend to receive the least amount of training. So this seems to be an ongoing challenge that the construction industry continues to face and really requires some attention across the industry. And John, maybe you can speak a little bit more to another key challenge related to risk and some of the associations really with that now that have been caused by COVID as well, if you don't mind sharing a little bit there.
Sure. Amazingly enough, we looked at a study this morning that just came out for one of the organizations, and one of the offsets of COVID fighting with on the job site is lost productivity as well. Study actually showed that it was about 0.8, an hour and a half, I believe it was lost during the day, 85 minutes roughly, so almost an hour and a half, which accounts for preparing for COVID, temperature checks in the morning, probably lost productivity, just worrying about it as you go along. So definitely there's a lot of risk out there, and I don't believe COVID is going away anytime soon. I think it's something the construction industry needs to be prepared for well into 2021. I mean, last night watching the news, which I try to stay away from, but watching it, I got the report now they think the vaccine will probably have about a 40% success rate. Well, what that means, which is, still pretty good, 40 to 50, but that could be possibly half the people that get the vaccine will still be susceptible to catching COVID. So I think we're probably going to see COVID be an issue throughout our job sites, productivity, safety, risk with clients well through 2021. This hopefully will have a little bit better handle on it. So definitely, I agree with what you're saying. We're seeing it not only on this construction industry side. There's a huge uptick on the law side, getting clauses in contracts, taking care of, with the daily reports and covering everybody's backside. And as far as just, what do you do? I mean, I had a call going home the other night from one of our Pennsylvania clients. He had 4 crews, and out of the 4 crews, 3 of them got infected, 2 foremen and then 2 crew member from a 3rd crew. So, he's got to deal with that. He's got jobs shutting down. He's got crews he's got to try to get tested to keep, the healthy ones going. So it's a serious challenge out there for all of us, for sure.
Well, thanks, John, for sharing, and what timely statistics that were presented just in time for the presentation today. So thank you very much for sharing, and couldn't agree more. I mean, this is just another distraction on top of the list that I've got presented here, with some of these other challenges as well that contractors are facing already on a day-to-day basis, and now it's compounded by some of this COVID crisis as well. So it's unfortunate circumstances, but hopefully we all can work together to provide some help there as well.
Agreed.
All right, so just to talk a little bit, so John and I and Cotney and Trestles connected quite a while back actually, and we formed an affinity partnership with them. And really a key objective for our partnership is, focusing on combining our years of experience and expertise to really help contractors, roofing contractors, and especially specialty contractors improve a number of processes such as those that are listed here. Something else that I think, John, you would probably agree with is I think we're both in alignment very much on our stance in the industry, in which we're both really trying to help keep contractors out of trouble. And we've got different approaches to doing that, but I think that's a pretty extreme passion of both Cotneys as well as Trestles.
Yeah, absolutely agree 100%. Fortunately, I really had an opportunity to test drive your entire program, like I said, prior to us even doing what we're doing. And I know we had many conversations prior to even looking at what you had to offer. And we were aligned at that point. Believe strongly in business processes, risk management, absolutely strongly. And as far as, all the different items that go into your software and your program, to train, from your workforce in the field. I mean, that's where it's at. And we definitely have the agreement on efficiency over productivity. And I think you're probably one of the few, if not the only out there that is aligned with my thinking on that as well. I mean, you guys have been forerunners in this for many years. Efficiency is the key, and that's probably the hardest thing to get anybody to understand the difference between efficiency and productivity. But once they involve themselves in a program like you have here, they understand at the end what the difference is, and I think it'll be beneficial to everyone involved.
Mark, I see you smiling over there. Do you have anything else to add?
No, other than just to say that we're really grateful, honored, and excited to be partners with Cotney. First time I met John, it was apparent that we're aligned with what we're trying to do. And as Jacqueline kind of said earlier, that for me, I mean, we got a business to run, but this is really all about giving back to an industry that has just been an industry that I love and has been really good to me.
Yeah, very well said. I agree.
Well, great. Well, John, if you don't mind, I think we've got a slide here that covers a little bit of your services on the consulting side. And if you want to give a little bit more, I know Trent in the introduction spoke a little bit about your law services, but if you want to just talk a little bit about Cottony and
Sure.
we can get started with that and transition over from there.
Well, our main focus is definitely on the roofing contractors in the industry. That's where my background comes in over the past 45 years. On the law side, we absolutely work with any type of construction. We specialize in roofing, HVAC, and small general contractor specialty trades. That's where we're at. On the consulting side, we have really almost three phases of what we do. We have the pure business consulting, where we sit down and focus on the financial analysis of the company as far as where their processes and procedures are, their type of business that they're in now, where they want to go after. So you do all that, you'd be able to set up your, where their KPIs are compared to the industry, and your goals and ambitions, and work on a plan that best suited to the owners and the company and the team. I don't believe that one plan fits all. That's where I really like to specialize in the consulting part of this. I believe you have to interview, know your customer, and you have to adapt. The basic processes are all the same, but you have to be able to adapt to what the team will be able to do. So we do that. We also deal with we have software we write out on the smart sheet side. This is more for executive management and processes in the roofing companies, and we have other construction companies on that, separate from what what you're going to show us. We've talked about that in the beginning, how we can have an integration with Smartsheet to your product to get the information more to the executives, the C-level, the managers, the field, however it needs to be. But that's separate. You've got to, don't want to blow the surprise, but you got a good one coming up. I think everybody's going to enjoy. And then we also have an artificial intelligence, which we call precog analytics. That is really good for your probably 10, 15 million and up roofing contractors. Won't get too much into that. We got a big release coming out in that, and there's a couple articles coming out in magazines. So we'll get more into that. But I think that's pretty much covers it all in a nutshell, what we do.
Well, thanks, John. And like we said, it seems like there's a really good overlap between your services and ours. And we just really look forward to working together to provide our collaborative services to help improve these results that we're talking about. So on the Trussell side, we feel that we offer a fairly unique value proposition. Our key lines of business are really our construction management services. We do also offer a construction frontline supervisor training program that I'll get into in a little bit here. And then our labor management system, which really is a technology designed to help improve the job site management, crew management, especially in the field, and improving productivity results overall. On the construction management side, some of the services that we provide are really around process improvement, scheduling, work package management, project management, material management, and et cetera. These are some of the key services that we provide on the consulting side, and we do have a workforce that's involved in improving some of these different processes. As far as the frontline supervisor training goes, in this regards, we offer a very popular 2-day frontline supervisor training program that we do usually offer in partnerships with some of the different associated builders and contractors, chapters around the nation, or we'll work directly with construction contractors to deliver our program. What this is a 2-day program that's really focused on the fundamentals of planning and scheduling, labor management and productivity, continuous improvement, and effective leadership. So one of the challenges that we talked about a little bit earlier on was workforce development. This is our answer to helping improve that, at least at the field leadership level, making sure that those high-performing field leaders and up-and-coming leaders are receiving the training that they need and the fundamental improvements that they need to really effectively lead their crews and see more efficient results, as John, you alluded to a little bit earlier on. So far, we've had about 660 individuals participate in this program. That number continues to grow pretty quickly. Over 100 contractors across all different industries, lots of roofing contractors, a lot of specialty contractors, and we have had a few general contractors participate in this program as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to add before you move on, that's of course
Sure.
I had the opportunity to take, and also another person I know took it through the ABC that you did. Definitely was well worth it. One of the things when I came into consulting, I knew that you had to have something like that. What I mean is it's valuable, it's companies need it. So I wanted to just put the fact out there that that's one of the reasons why we partnered up too. I don't think I've seen anyone do a better job of putting that frontline training for the field together than what you guys had. So again, and one thing I believe in is you don't try to reinvent the wheel. You partner yourself with the best in the industry, and you put the whole package together. So I just want to, that to be known to everybody listening. This is a great system.
Well, thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John, and lots of years of experience behind that training program as well, as you know. So really happy to hear that you were really pleased with that and continue to advocate for that as well. So now I guess getting into the core, the intent today is to really talk about using technology to improve job site management and productivity. And so I'd like to get into a quick demonstration really of our labor management system, Trussell's labor management system, and talk a little bit about how systems like this can really help to improve on some of the challenges that we touched on earlier, making sure that best practices are institutionalized and implemented and having some control there. So quick highlight before I get into the demonstration here. I think this picture that we're sharing up on the screen and presenting currently does a really good overview of really what we're trying to do and our objectives with our system. So making sure that the work for the field, constraints are being removed, the work is planned in advance. That plan is then worked by the field. We're tracking performance results, and then we're also collecting different metrics that can help with leading indications for improvements as well. So, so really, as far as technology goes, and really focusing on improving, job site management and productivity, there was a report, and we actually posted a blog about this recently, and John, I'm not sure if you had a chance to review it, but recently we shared a blog on measuring productivity does not necessarily improve productivity. And kind of the basis for that post was a McKinsey article, McKinsey and Company article that was published about 5 years ago. But it's still very, and really the objective is that, McKinsey proposed a lot of the challenges that the construction industry is facing that overlap with a lot of the topics that we discussed earlier. And as part of this, they also proposed a number of solutions that really align, John, with your services that we discussed earlier on the risk management side, but also the planning and scheduling. Key emphasis on that early upfront planning, especially at the field level, and implementing best practices as well. So our labor management system, what we've tried to do with that is really focus on making sure that we're instituting some of these best practices. So something that we tend to hear a lot of times as we're having conversations with the specialty contractors that we meet with is that they tend to believe that they're at the mercy of the general contractor when it comes to scheduling their projects. And, sometimes that just doesn't work out very well. And what we'd really like to say is it's really helpful for specialty contractors, roofers, electrical contractors, HVAC contractors, et cetera, to really make sure that they're putting in place short interval scheduling and pull planning processes, which are industry practices again, that can really help create a win-win situation for both the general contractor and the specialty contractor performing the work. So that can really help to get more control over the crews. So what you're seeing right now is our short interval schedule system, which really is something that we believe is fairly unique. And what we've tried to do here is create a simulator where project managers in collaboration with project teams can really go through and for a particular scope of work, I guess backing up just a little bit, something that we like to say a lot is, big jobs are just a lot of little jobs. And what we're really trying to do is break that job down into little jobs and create a short interval schedule or a pull plan that's about 1 to 2 weeks in duration and aligns with a given scope of work, and make sure that then we can establish the daily goals for the field. So our short interval schedule simulator that you're seeing here, in this case is for a particular scope of work, a metal roof install. And what you're seeing here are a few tasks that a particular crew would need to execute in order to complete the work assigned to that particular scope. So really what we're trying to do here is provide a means for project managers in collaboration with the project team to establish daily goals, assign the plan completion percentages, et cetera, the resources that will be completing and executing the work, and then provide a means for project teams to have some upfront indication as to the success of this plan in comparison to the budget for the scope of work based on their allocation and the resources that they've assigned. So again, we're really focusing here on the upfront planning component, making sure that we're creating goals for the field that can then be communicated and that we can track that information later on. Another key component, and this is in alignment with a few different industry best practices, including lean, is really focus on the elimination of constraints. And what this really means is that we're trying to make sure that construction crews have everything that they need before the work begins. So we want to make sure that crew leaders aren't being held up because they don't have their approved construction drawings, because they don't have their specifications, materials aren't on site that need to be there, et cetera. So the objective here is really to provide a transparent means. And again, going back to the job site management and productivity, it's really critical that we're equipping these crew leaders with everything that they need in advance so that they are not delayed before they're even starting the work because of something that could have been better planned for. And another key, really a key component of really improving results at the job site, everybody knows that safety is the #1 topic when it comes to importance and making sure that we're keeping our workers safe and everybody is going home to their loved ones at the end of the day. So something that's really critical, we feel, is pushing safety further into the planning process. So again, as we're planning for these little jobs, we want to make sure that we are planning the hazards and mitigation measures that are associated with some of these different tasks that a crew will be performing, and being able to provide an easy and efficient way of setting up that information to communicate with the crews is really a key goal here to help provide some transparency on the process, make sure that we're not missing any hazards, that the crew leaders know and are fully aware of what they need to be doing and talking about with their crews to keep everybody safe and going home at the end of the day. So as this information is compiled and this plan is established, once it's prepared in advance, and generally we recommend executing this planning process about 4 to 6 weeks in advance of when this particular scope of work, in this case, this metal roof install, is expected to begin, making sure that we're compiling that information, and then we can transfer this information to the field, in which case the crew leaders then are able to review this information with their crews and make sure that they're able to report against the plan as well. So that JSA, assuming the job safety analysis is set up as part of the plan, that information can then be transferred to the crew leaders. So each morning as they're having their safety toolbox talks, they're able to review the hazards with the crews, have discussions around them, and also collect any signatures that might be required as well. So that's information that's really important. It needs to be documented. John, I'm sure you guys do a lot of work with the safety and understanding the importance there from a risk perspective as well. So we want to make sure that we're collecting the signatures and that we're having these conversations in the field and hitting on all the key topics.
Yes, if our clients were document as well as you can document with this program, absolutely, it'd be a lot easier on all sides and a lot cheaper in the long run on the construction industry. Saves a lot of legal issues.
Yeah, and from a productivity perspective as well, we still talk to quite a few people that are handling safety processes on paper. There's a lot of time savings, John, as you just alluded to there. We actually did a study recently with the contractor that we were working with, and they had a simple JSA that we were taking a look at with, I think it was about 3 tasks, and they were documenting this on paper, and we ended up basically going through and writing out these tasks on a daily basis to see how long it was taking to do so, and then duplicating the effort in the system, and we were able to save, I think it was almost 8.5 minutes for just one crew leader by setting up the JSA and documenting it through the system versus writing it out. Now multiply that by 20 crew leaders, by 40 crew leaders, whatever the case is, there becomes some significant time savings there. And that was, like I said, just 3 tasks that we were taking care of in that circumstance. So, I'm sorry, John, did you have something to add there?
I said absolutely. every minute you're away from putting a part in place, regardless of your industry, is dollars out the door. There's no doubt about it.
Sure. So another key thing is really the transfer of information of the daily goals to the crew leaders. So our short interval schedule, we're transferring that information, the daily goals, to the crew leaders so that we can really spark some conversations there as well. It's really critical that, you know, the guys and girls in the field know what their goals are on a day-by-day basis as far as their man hours and really their percent complete or quantities, to make sure that they have targets set so that when they're out in the field executing the work, they know where they need to hit in order to keep on schedule. So with our short interval schedule, we're trying to transfer that information to the crew leaders so that they can see their daily goals, review that information on a daily basis, and really be able then to have some good discussions and make sure that they're keeping productive and staying on track with the schedule, because they're able to better meet their targets, having that information made available. So another important component is really the focus on constraints again, that we talked about a little bit earlier. And so we're also trying to convey and communicate this information to the field, assuming those constraints are set up as part of the plan. That information is then transferred and shared with crew leaders, and they're able to also document any constraints that might come up throughout the course of construction as well. And we do have something similar here with a notes function that we have, where we can also capture any critical impacts that might come up throughout the course of construction. So again, making sure that the crews are staying productive and the jobs are being best managed, we want to make sure that we're keeping track of documentation for any critical impacts or constraints that come up, and also making sure that there's a timely notification then back to the project team so that they can make sure that that information is being dealt with, or any issues that arise, so that the job can keep moving forward efficiently. So a lot of what we're trying to do within our system, and as far as improving this productivity and job site management, there's a lot of communication involved with just making sure that the crew has the information and tools that they need to execute their work efficiently. But it's also important to make sure that they're able to report in a timely manner. So we do have capabilities then to collect time, which is a pretty critical component of our system, being able to report the time on a daily basis, based on how the crew is performing on a daily basis and the tasks that they're assigned to. But another critical component is really collecting progress. So we want to make sure that we're providing a means for construction crews to report their progress on a daily basis and submit that information so management teams can also review that in a timely manner. So really, again, going back to this productivity, you know, the planning and scheduling is really important to make sure that we're communicating the daily goals with the crews, but then also that they can submit back into what that plan was that was established for the particular scope of work. Something that isn't always communicated with crew leaders that we feel is very important to help improve productivity is to also make sure that they know where they stand on a daily basis. So the home screen for each of our frontline supervisors will share some key metrics, including their cumulative productivity or their cumulative progress based on the plan. They're reporting their actual progress, and then they also have insight into their cumulative productivity on a daily basis, which we believe is very important information for these crew leaders so that they know where they stand and are really able to make some improvements over time as well. So essentially, one of the other key components is really the reliability record. So once this small job is complete within the system, we really want to make sure that we're capturing from the field the reasons why the package or the particular scope of work, that schedule, was not adhered to. Did weather cause some sort of delays? Right now we have some COVID issues that might be causing delays. Material delays because of logistical issues right now are compounded as well. And John, I don't know if you have any statistics there. I think we talked a little bit about that the other day, but I know, you know, materials delays are causing a lot of challenges for a lot of these projects today as well. So we want to make sure we're documenting that kind of information, and management teams have an insight there as well.
Yeah, I was actually on a webinar with, excuse me, a consultant that deals in the delivery of materials for the building industry, logistics and everything, and they're seeing a huge uptick in delays on getting material from, you know, point of origin to the actual job site. So they expect this to be an ongoing problem through the end of the year. Statistically, she said there's probably about a 20% overall delay compared to what there was prior to COVID, but in some areas it's as high as 55% additional time to get it, and they're expecting that to almost be industry-wide, probably towards November, December of this year going into next year. So it's definitely going to be a critical issue to keep notated.
Yeah, so we want to make sure really that we're documenting all of these causes, whether it's related to materials, whether it's related to COVID-19 shutdowns, rework, et cetera. The documentation of that information is really important for continuous improvement. Some of what's happening right now might be out of our control, but there are oftentimes a lot of cases that we can work to mitigate if we have the information and the data that's presented to show us where we really need to focus our efforts for improvement. So basically, as these small jobs are closed out, what we're doing is then communicating with management teams on what these results might look like. And these results can be analyzed at the company level for a particular project down to a particular discipline. But really what we're trying to do here is provide some information at kind of the 30,000 foot level of what the performance looks like based on those filter selections. So we want to share the schedule reliability information. What % of these small jobs are completing on time versus what % are overdue? And going back to that report that we just talked about with reliability, the schedule slippage reasons chart here will show why. Is it materials that's constantly a problem for us? Is it rework? Is it permits? Whatever the case is, we're able to document that information, analyze it as we need to, and hopefully for anything that might be within our control, we can take steps to mitigate going forward. Something else that we have in our system that I didn't touch on earlier is we do have the means of collecting feedback as well on the performance of our different packages or our different small jobs. And what we're trying to do here is provide an aggregate basically of some of the results that we might be able to collect from customer feedback or internally on the performance of each of these different scopes of work that are being performed by the field. Another key indicator that we're sharing here is really the labor performance. So we want to make sure that we're communicating the cost information and outputs from the field in a timely fashion, the productivity outputs from the field in a timely fashion, labor efficiency index, as well as our own index that we've incorporated, our Trussell's labor management index, which is factoring some of the information that we're collecting within the system here. So these are key indicators for management teams to really make sure that they're keeping up to date with the information that the field is submitting, and also sparking some conversations as well and providing some early indication here into the project success. So this is just some of the information that we're really trying to get in front of management teams and make sure that it's accessible and that steps can be taken to mitigate any potential concerns early on and continuously improve throughout the process. So that's really a lot of the key outputs of the system. There are detailed reports that essentially back up all of this information. I don't think we need to get into it today, but really what we're trying to do here is share some key performance metrics with management team as a result of the outputs from the field versus what was planned for them and their daily goals that were established. So going back to what we spoke about a little bit earlier, you know, a lot of the challenges that are faced, again, are a lack of standardization, a lack of best practice processes, and it's systems like this that can really help to make sure that you're getting the documentation that you need internally, sharing it amongst your project teams in the field, and sharing the information back with management as well. And making sure that we're institutionalizing and standardizing some of these best practice processes to kind of make it seamless as to how the field is able to execute the work and seamlessly integrate a lot of these processes that are proven to provide better results for the field. So other than that, I think that, you know, just to reiterate again on some of the key objectives that, you know, we really think are important to improve job site management and productivity. This presentation today is really specifically focused on, you know, technology and how it can incorporate these industry best practices, but really to reiterate, to see improvements, especially for labor intensive specialty contractors, we'd really like to have these considerations that we'd like to leave with. And some of those are, and John, I'll let you chime in after I get through these. I'm curious on your input as well, but we really want to make sure that, you know, project teams are equipped with the tools that they need to meet or beat the estimate. This is a challenge that we continue to see, making sure that crews have everything that they need before they start the work. Something that we hear time and time again as we're introduced to new companies is there's possibly not a process for documenting constraints. A lot of times, even an understanding of constraints can be a challenge that we face. So just making sure that we're communicating what these constraints are within the industry, setting best practice guidelines for what those constraints look like, and making sure that that's a part of our standard process of operations, making sure that we're tracking constraints, monitoring them, and making sure that those are being removed before the field begins the work so that they can execute efficiently without any holdups that could have been better planned for. We want to make sure that we're incorporating safety into the planning process and making sure that we have the adequate documentation around that. Another key metric here is making sure that we're setting daily production goals for the crews so that we can track the results, but also so that the crews have expectations set as to where they need to be to remain productive and to keep on schedule. We also want to make sure that crews have access to the daily schedule information as well as productivity feedback. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, a lot of times we encounter that crew leaders might not be aware of their productivity at all, possibly not even how to calculate that information, and making sure that they have a good understanding of productivity metrics and getting information on their productivity and updates on a regular basis is something that's really important for them from a leadership perspective on making sure that they're able to stay productive, understand how to be productive, and also to keep on schedule. As managers, we want to make sure that we're regularly analyzing the root cause analysis so that there's always opportunities for continuous improvement, and really kind of some alignment with Lean here, making sure that we're complying to plan, do, check, and act. John or Mark, do you have anything else to add there as kind of a recap of some opportunities here for using different technology systems to make sure that we're improving the overall management and productivity? Mark, I think you're on mute.
Well, I think, thank you, Jacqueline. I thought you did a really good job of kind of summarizing what the system does. And as Jacqueline said, what we're trying to do, and we think the system does really well, is it's kind of one of our hashtags, best practices simplified. Short interval planning, I think everybody can agree is important. But sometimes easier said than done. We've tried to simplify that process, try to make reporting for the field as simple as possible, and give them immediate impact on a daily basis of how they're doing against the plan. And then, as just to reiterate what she said, I just think it's critical to close the loop of continuous improvement to, try to analyze if we don't meet our expectations, why and what can we do about it? What can we inject into the upstream planning process to prevent that from ever happening again?
Yeah, definitely all well said. What I can add in on that is as far as labor compared to materials, a lot of companies spend an enormous amount of time focusing on labor or on material costs. That should be correct in your estimate. That really should not be the big unknown on your job if your estimate's done correctly in the beginning. About 4, maybe 6 years ago, I did a study that went across 20 years worth of jobs project data. And in that data, I found out over 20 years that the variance in materials for 1,500, 2,000 jobs was less than a plus or minus 1%. So you're not going to lose your job based on material. The data was there to show it. Now, the interesting thing, when I do the labor study on the same projects, less than 5% of those projects beat labor budget that was estimated. And probably maybe, I think it was like about 18% came in on labor budget. So, when you took those two figures together, the large percentage over 20 years that went over budget, some of them even out of pocket, they're all different ranges. So the interesting thing about all that is this is where when you put a proper estimate together, regardless of what trade or division you're in, your money that you're going to add into your bottom line of your company is going to come from tracking your processes and your labor efficiencies. Productivity of units is only going to increase so much. You can only put a pipe together so fast, a roof down so fast, but it's all these other processes that do away with, if you're working an 8 to 10 hour day and 3 to 4 hours is wasted on everything else, which there's studies that show that too. If you cut that down to half that amount of waste, imagine how much more productivity you're putting out because your efficiency is increased. That's dollars to the bottom line. And definitely your software here is great. And your whole entire process is fantastic for training everybody how to understand efficiency and how to make that money savings into their company. And with the software that you just demonstrated here, it gives you more of a predictive analytical view of your labor rather than go back and trying to figure it out through post-job analysis.
Yeah, thank you, John. I would also add that, we're aware of the shortage of skilled craftspeople, and, there's a lot of things that I think the industry can do about that. But the one thing that and to a certain degree, it feels like we're kind of out of control when it relates to, just the availability of talented craftspeople. But what we can do is we can plan better, and we can spend a little bit of investment in our frontline supervisors. And the best crew in the world without a plan and a poor leader is going to fail. And so if we have average guys that maybe lack the experience, and we have a good plan, and we have a well-trained frontline supervisor, we got a pretty good chance of making the budget.
Agreed. Nothing more important than training your frontline people. I know a lot of companies feel, well, if I train too much, they're just going to go somewhere else. Well, I don't believe in that. I think if you train and you take care of your people, they're going to stay with you. And the other part about that is, can you really afford to keep people that you're not willing to train? It goes hand in hand. You've got to train and you've got to be prepared.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Mark. And I think just one last thing too for our attendees here. I think it's really important for any of you that might not be familiar with it, this article by McKinsey & Company, the Construction Productivity Imperative. It's a really great article. Again, it highlights a lot of the challenges that we've discussed today, and it reiterates a lot of the points that we discussed as well here for improving productivity and these steps that need to be taken in order to see those improved results. So if you haven't taken a look at that, even if maybe you have, but it was a few years ago after the article was published, and you haven't looked at it recently, we have a link to it on our blog from our website, so you can quickly access it there. But I would highly encourage you to revisit that and really focus in on, what some of these key suggestions are that they've provided as well, and recommendations, a lot of which we conveyed today, to really take steps to improve, job site management and productivity overall.
Agreed. I did get a question. Are we up to questions now? I believe we are.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I did get a question that was sent in to me. It's an interesting question. It's a good question. It basically wants to know what is the, I guess the easiest way to put it in the way I'm reading it here is, how long does it take to get your team trained to use this software? And it's a two-parter. And their second part of the question was, do you recommend, if you're interested in the software or interested in even just the training, that these should go hand in hand, or are they separately used? And what's your opinion on how well if you use them separately or if you combine the two together?
Sure. So I would say, and Mark, correct me if you disagree, but I would say that the training and the software, there's overlap from a process perspective. So crew leaders are not formally trained and don't fully understand how to build out these short interval schedules, for example, or create a 1-week schedule. The software will be helpful because it can still automate it, but we don't want to automate bad practices, right? So it's really important and critical that your crew leaders and your project teams do have good processes in place and do have a good understanding fundamentally of how to plan and schedule, really breaking down the work into 1 to 2 week schedules, and make sure that there's an understanding of some of the information from a metrics perspective as well. If your teams don't know how to track productivity or calculate productivity, for example, and crew composite rates and the importance of different crew mixes, that information would be provided by the software, but it won't necessarily be meaningful. So it's really important that making sure that, you know, project and field teams are educated, you know, first on what those metrics are. Now, it's not necessarily a prerequisite of implementing the software technically, but I guess it's more of a suggestion. And Mark, I don't know if you disagree there, but I think, you know, our recommendation is that automating bad practices is good. So we want to really make sure too that our software users also understand the fundamentals of a lot of these different metrics and processes.
Well, I would just add the other thing is that there's 4 components of our training, and kind of the first day is more the technical side, which really aligns with what the software does, you know, planning and scheduling and labor management. And we do kind of give an overview of, you know, the overall project scheduling process, and then do a deep dive into short interval scheduling. I wouldn't say it's, as Jacqueline said, a required prerequisite. Do believe that it's helpful.
Yeah, and from a time, I know the first part of the question, John, was about implementation timing. So, you know, our system, there's technology systems of all sorts of different complexities these days. Some of them are an app that you can get up and running in a day. Some of them are more intensive project management tools that might take months, you know, 6 months to a year to implement. We've seen really, really quick results. There's not a lot of setup required with the system. With any system, there's going to be a little bit of information that you need to compile and to get put into the system. There's not a lot on that end. And if you have good processes in place already, the software itself comes pretty easy. We offer a free 14-day trial. We've been able to work with people in that duration to get the individuals that we've worked with up and running and see results from the systems within that duration. We've worked with teams with frontline supervisors that where English is their second language, that have had a good understanding of how the mobile application works within a 1-hour demo of how that works. So conceptually and from a timing perspective, it's a very minimal time investment. Usually we say in under 25 hours, assuming that we need committed resources. So we need to make sure that we have a leadership sponsor, that the team is bought in, and that we have somebody that's helping to push the project forward on the customer side. We can get that up and running in easily under 25 hours and make sure that the teams are moving forward.
No, sounds good. The only thing I'll add in there, I know from my perspective, I think taking the 2 days is the best 2 days you'll spend with your team on operational training. So I mean, I can recommend that you should do that as well as then try to implement the software. So I think from my standpoint, both is best, but definitely the operational training should not be missed.
I certainly wouldn't want to judge your people. We're continually surprised, though, that, you know, back to Jacqueline's original point, that, you know, just some of these frontline guys through the years have been, you know, promoted up to, you know, superintendent and project management without ever having any sort of formal training. And we've found guys that, you know, 20 years in the business, but when it comes to our short interval planning exercise, we have a set of drawings and we group them up, and they get the drawings, they do the takeoffs, they list the tasks, they try to schedule them out. And, you know, there's a lot of these folks that really struggle with that. So, and, you know, we try to fashion it to where, I mean, it could be, we really want it to be long-term developmental, to where it's those high potential, you know, lead men or craftspeople that, you know, really have some, you know, strong technical knowledge and maybe have some leadership traits that make them a high potential to set them up for success as they get promoted to the foreman or frontline supervisor level. But we're also finding that people have been in the industry for a long time, just have never been taught the fundamentals.
I can agree with that. Sitting around many job meetings over the years at scheduling meetings, there's a whole group of people at the tables representing their companies that are clueless on process planning, that's for sure. It's a shame, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, it's, sometimes the yelling really loud and arm waving, there's a time for that, but in general, it's not the most effective way to execute the work, right?
Yeah, agreed. I believe that's the only real question we have, and that was a good question. That was kind of 4 or 5 in a row. We got good reply on that. So very good. Anything else that you all have to add?
I don't think anything else on our end, at least for me, other than, again, John, we're really excited for our opportunity to be working with you and Trent and the team. I know you've all been growing, looking forward to meeting some of the other team members over time as well, and seeing your success with your growth there as well. But we're very thankful and appreciative for this opportunity today.
Yeah, and thank you for doing the webinar.
I was just going to say thanks to the attendees, and thank you, John. Really appreciate it.
And I know I received quite a few emails that people weren't able to attend, and we will have this rebroadcasted for anybody to watch at their own timeline and pace. So looking forward to get that out there. Again, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this, and again, everybody else the same way that was able to log in for the live preview. So I want to say thank you very much, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you.